Welcome to our broadcast of the 2024 Halifax Regional Municipality Mayoral Candidates Engagement with the Black and Immigrant Communities, held at the Delmore Daye Learning Institute in Halifax. Organized by the Leading Leaders Society of Nova Scotia in collaboration with Community Update and with M4 Media as technical partner, this event provided a crucial platform for dialogue on the issues that matter most to these vibrant communities. Before the start of the session, our Community Update reporters had the chance to catch up with the candidates.
What are your plans, if I should just ask in a nutshell, what are your plans for the Black communities in Halifax?
You know, I think we're going to hear a lot about that tonight, but the big thing is to acknowledge HRM, Halifax, especially the city of Halifax as the city that tore down Africville. We need to have a recognition that those harms continue, that intergenerational wealth was stolen from the Black community. And what makes me really excited is going around the last 6 to 9 months of campaigning and meeting people like Curtis and meeting people who are talking about the community land trust model and also the recent UNESCO World Heritage Site designation for Africville. If we want to have reparative plans, if we want to address the harms, and if we want to try and bring up the African Nova Scotian community from 200 years, 400 years of systemic oppression, that means that you need to take a really different look at how you do things. And a big part of that is restoring control of the Africville lands to the African Nova Scotian people and supporting all of the African Nova Scotian communities with the establishment of community land trusts. But the most important thing, I'm going long here, sorry, the most important thing is nothing about us without us, right? What we've learned from the African Nova Scotian Road to Economic Prosperity report and process, which I was a part of as a member of the Halifax Partnership Board and supported gladly, is every one of those communities will have a different solution. There's no cookie cutter that says we're going to do this in Beachville, we're going to do this in Upper Hamilton Plains, we're going to do this in Lucasville. They will all have to be tailored and led by those communities. So the role of HRM is to support that, not to lead that, it's to support that.
Thank you so much. That's very comforting. Yeah. What makes you different or stand out from other candidates?
Well, it's funny because we're all saying the same things, right? We're all going to talk about housing. We're all going to talk about affordability. We're all going to talk about traffic and transit. We're all talking about those things. What makes me stand out is that I was self-employed for 20 years, ran my own business, know what it's like to make payroll, know what it's like to be afraid you can't make payroll. I got my MBA in 2016. I taught at NSCC for 5 years in the music business program, and then I've been elected for 12 years, and I have a 12-year track record of making and delivering my promises. So if you go to masonformayor.ca and look at my plan, I have a platform there with 79 promises in it, including supporting community land trusts, including Africville, and making sure that we address that head on and take responsibility for that, because it's the city that caused that harm, not the province, not the feds. I have that track record of delivering on my promises, and those are promises I intend to keep.
All right. Thank you very much. We look forward to listening to you more during
Great.
the program.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have with us Andy Fillmore. Andy, tell us a little bit about you and your campaign and everything that's going on right now.
Well, hey, thank you very much for the question. I'm Andy. I'm a candidate for mayor in this election. I grew up in Halifax. I'm a city planner by training. That's a job I did for about 25 years in the Boston area for the first little bit, but then here in Halifax for the rest. And then I've just completed being the member of parliament for Halifax for the last 9 years. And I just resigned that job in August to run full-time to become the next mayor of HRM. And that's my story.
And that is your story. And so that is a very big role. I think one thing we want to know as the Black community and the immigrant community is what is something that we can actually hold you to and see some of the changes that we are facing and within the challenges that we're facing in our community.
Yeah, I've made it a very important element of my time as the Member of Parliament for Halifax that I stay connected with the immigrant community, that I stay connected with the African Nova Scotian community. One way I did that was to create a youth council that was extremely diverse, that had members from many communities, including the African Nova Scotian community. But countless roundtables that I've both been invited to participate in, but also have convened oftentimes convening roundtables when federal ministers are here that we're, for example, creating programs to fight discrimination or to boost diversity and inclusion. So this is very important to me. This is the Halifax that I know and love, this beautiful multicultural city. And we're going to keep on building that, and the only way we can do it is to keep on listening to community. And as mayor, I'm going to find as many ways as I can to have those touch points with our diverse community.
Awesome. I'm so thankful for your time here, and thank you so much for the conversation that you actually brought to us. And we're looking forward to seeing what goes on with you.
Thanks so much, and we'll all find out what happens after October 19th. And I credit all of the candidates for all the hard work they're putting in right now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andy.
So in a nutshell, what are your plans for the Black communities here?
Basically, there's a lot of things that are lacking in the Black community that I would love to see change. One thing in particular is for our newcomers. We need to have more programming, like linguistic programs that are going to be open and welcome for our newcomers. The second thing I would love to see is a new revised implementation of a diverse and inclusion policy. I feel that the city is lacking in that, and it's something that needs to be addressed, especially when we have a city that's obviously growing, and we're growing as well as multicultural. So we need to be a little bit more on top of that.
So inclusion is like a major thing of your, manifesto.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the candidates running, there's a perfect example.
Right. I see that. So what makes you different from other candidates?
So what makes me different is that obviously stands out. The second is that I am community driven and community passion. A lot of candidates that are running don't have that. And of course, the obvious. There's 3 candidates that are seasoned veterans and politicians. So we've got one guy that's got 9 years of federal government leadership. We have the other 2 that are councilors here in the city. So I'm totally different. I'm coming with a new, fresh perspective, different way of doing things. A community connector, and a people person that understands the diversity with our marginalized communities and with our vulnerable population. And so I have all that experience. So.
All right, thank you. We'll be hearing more from you during the program.
Yes,
thank you so much. Yeah.
I'm actually from an immigrant home myself, so I grew up in a home with 2 languages, and I'm dedicated and committed to ensuring that services at the municipality are available in multi-languages, including programs for children, recreation programs. I'd like to see more programs at our libraries as well that include new Canadians and ensure that newcomers feel welcome and hearing their language, but also culturally responsive programs. And I know we have a lot of work to do at the municipality to become more inclusive and diverse with our workforce. But in particular, I'd like to hear more from the immigrant community. And as mayor, I will ensure that we have that direct link to our immigration community, but also those newcomers who are coming in, they have to be retained. And in order to keep them here happy and thriving, we need those families to feel welcome and have opportunities for employment, programming, and as well have a way for them to build up their own businesses. So I'm excited about building local, resilient economies that include Black businesses and ensure that newcomers have those tools that they need to create business, and also being able to build awareness through festivals and events and supporting events that promote cultural and ethnic foods and cultures and languages. And one of the things that I would like to see the municipality work stronger on is an anti-Black racist strategy and Islamophobia, and ensure that we're listening and spending time with the community to ensure that we are responding quickly to their concerns and that government is working on behalf of the Black and newcomer community.
Yeah, nice. I'm really happy about, children and youth that you mentioned. I'm very passionate about that as well, and then families. So what makes you stand out from other candidates? I know you've heard that question maybe a couple of times.
I do. I hear that question a lot. So I am the only woman on the ballot. I'm a mother, and I believe that as a mother, I have a different perspective about taking care of children, taking care of families. I believe that all of our policies should actually be built with a child in mind. So whether or not we're talking about recreation or we're talking about employment programs, we need to think about the next generation. So I'm not interested in only this, term as mayor, the 4-year term. I'm thinking about building a city for the next generation, looking to create a space where in the next 50 years we have a beautiful multicultural society where newcomers can come here, start new businesses, and feel welcome and that they belong so that those families stay here. That's my biggest fear right now, is that more and more families are going to realize that Halifax just isn't a place for them and they'll leave, and that's what's happened over the last 30 years. So we've had about 20,000 newcomers come to Halifax in the last few years. I want to keep them here.
Nice. I wish you all the best. We'll be hearing more from you, during the panel, and I hope you can respond to all the questions you'll be asked, when you get in there. All the best. Thank you.
Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that we are located on the Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of Mi'kma'ki people. We are to acknowledge them as past, present, and future caretakers of this land. This is also the land where African Nova Scotian peoples have lived and contributed for over 400 years. I recognize and understand the peace and friendship treaties that are signed in 1752 and the commitment aligned to the better well-being of African Nova Scotians. We give thanks to this traditional and historical land, and we pay homage to our ancestors. There is soul in this soil. As we hold this important dialogue, may we honor the spirit of peace, friendship, and inclusivity that this land invites us to uphold. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Otni Chinenere, and I am the founder of Taura Communications, a company that helps build confidence through communication skills. And I'm going to be the moderator of this important conversation we're going to have today with our candidates. I would like to welcome you all to the 2024 HRM Elections Mayoral Candidates Engagement and Dialogue with Black and New Canadians. This event offers a crucial space to connect, learn, and engage with our candidates who are aspiring to lead our diverse city. We all know that democracy thrives when all voices are heard and included. So Halifax is home to a vibrant tapestry of communities, and today is about making sure that Black and newcomer perspectives are front and center in shaping our future. Whether you're here to listen, ask questions, or to share your concerns, honestly, we thank you because your perspective is very important here today. The goal of today's event is twofold. So one is to foster a transparent dialogue and allow our candidates to articulate their vision for inclusive and thriving Halifax. And number two, to ensure your questions, all of you in the room, challenges and hopes are heard, because the heartbeat of any city is its people. So throughout today's conversation, I do encourage us to remain as respectful and solution-oriented. And I also ask that this space be open and honest dialogue where we can explore each candidate to what they want to bring to the table and how their leadership will reflect the needs of all Haligonians. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to have the candidates introduce themselves, and then right there, we're going to dive right into the questions. So I'll go by order right now, but then I like to keep it conversational, so I'll mix it up in between. So Waye, we can start with you.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. A little bit of feedback. I adjust that down a bit. There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Waye Mason. I'm running for mayor. It is great to be back here in the neighborhood. My history, a little bit of my history is that I was self-employed for 20 years, ran my own business, had to make payroll, know what it's like to be afraid you can't make payroll. After that, I taught at NSCC in the music arts program and entrepreneurship to recording arts and photography students. And then I've been elected for the last 12 years. And as I've been saying, you know, at the many debates that we've had, I have a track record of making and delivering on promises that I make. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. But the reason I say it's great to be back in the neighborhood is both the music festival that I ran, the Halifax Pop Explosion, and the business that I ran, No Records, their offices are on Gottingen Street. I used to rent from the Samara Brothers just down the road next to from Argyle TV. We used to have our last office was right above the what used to be called Scotia Pharmasave in their old location in the old doctor's office. And I had a hand in founding the Gottingen Street Merchants Association, which later became the North End Business Association, working with Michelle Strum at Halifax Backpackers Alter Egos. And we're asked to talk about what kind of vision we have for Halifax, and mine is one that is inclusive and welcoming, and that, but also that addresses the historic inequities of the past. I didn't just bring up having an office in Gottingen Street to say, hey, I'm from the hood or whatever, like we would have said. It's because in that building, and I'm looking at Virginia as we're talking about this, Stella, you worked there, that's how we met, you worked in the pharmacy, and Stella ran Starlight Cuisine in the basement out of there, some of the best food you're ever going to get in the city. And we became friends, and Malachi, her grandson, and her whole family. And one day we're in there, I'm getting some patties and some goat to go back up to my office, and she says, conversationally, well, I grew up in Africville. And that was like a kick in the stomach, because to me, as someone who was born in 1972 in Dartmouth, that was ancient history, and here's someone who has become a friend and a mentor telling me, I lived through that, my family lived through that, my friends lived through that. And I think that's where it has to start, is that the harms that have happened to the African Nova Scotian community historically, that stole, Renee taught me to say that properly, again, that's Virginia, intergenerational wealth from African Nova Scotian people aren't just taking land at Beachville over the last 200 years. It's as recent as 70 years ago in Africville, and it arguably continues to this day. And what's amazing about this is that people from the African diaspora and people from the Muslim community and people from all of the new Canadian communities start the conversation when they talk about how they feel about living in Halifax with concern that they can't feel safe and secure in Halifax until these historic issues are addressed head on with the African Nova Scotian community and with our First Nations community, because what does it say to them if we don't value and want to address that? Which is why in my platform, and I'm jumping ahead a little and then I'll stop, I don't know where we're at with time, is I've committed to supporting community land trusts in all of the African Nova Scotian communities, and a reparative process in Africville, because there's a huge opportunity in Africville with the new McKay Bridge being built to put that land back under the control of the African Nova Scotian descendants of the Africville people. And I think that it is the least we can do. And unlike a lot of things in this world and in this country, it was the city of Halifax that caused that harm, and HRM has to take ownership of that. And it's not just about actually supporting the community to do things that were promised 15 years ago at the Apology and the center that was never built, interpretive center next to the church. It's about going way farther than that and really engaging with the community and having the community tell us how they want to deal with it. Because as I learned as a board member, helping the partnership, Halifax Partnership, helping to deliver the African Nova Scotian Road to Economic Prosperity, nothing about us without us. So I'm not going to tell people what I think, like where the roads should go or how it should go or what it's going to be. That's not my job, but I want to make sure that happens. So I'm so glad to be here today. Let's have a hard conversation.
Thanks so much, Waye. And you are right, and the community, and this is exactly why we actually put together this particular event, that you are able to actually hear from community. So thanks so much for that. Pam.
I'm Pam Lovelace, and I'm running for mayor of HRM. And I'm very grateful to all of you for organizing this event and attending this event and streaming this live. This is a really important conversation. So I'll talk a little bit about me. I won't jump ahead into some of the questions that we'll be talking about later, but I do look forward to your tough questions when we get to the Q&A section. So I grew up in an immigrant home. My father and grandparents came to Canada in 1968 from Germany. So I grew up speaking two languages, and aussi je parle français. And I am the liaison for Francophone and Acadian communities here in HRM. I'm very proud to support the French services strategy that HRM put forward. I'm also really proud to support the immigration strategy and look forward to the next iteration of that immigration strategy. But having grown up, living across the country, actually I was born here in Nova Scotia, and we grew up in Edmonton. Edmonton's a melting pot, big city, multicultural city, but Halifax has struggled to accept, to accept immigration and newcomers, and in particular, we're faced with anti-Black racism and Islamophobia, and significant issues when it comes to historic wrongs. African Nova Scotian communities, but also we need reparations and changes today to address anti-Black racism today. And so I feel like having grown up in Edmonton, I didn't understand or see or recognize racism until I came to Nova Scotia as a teenager and saw it firsthand, and the segregation in my community. That school, that elementary school in Hammonds Plains, was segregated until 1967. And so I've been working very closely with the Upper Hammonds Plains community, the Community Land Trust community in Upper Hammonds Plains, very historic African Nova Scotian community that was founded in 1815. And that community has been struggling to get proper water infrastructure. You probably saw in the news that this community in the 1990s received water lines with support from the Halifax municipality as well as the provincial government. And those water lines that were laid don't even support fire hydrants. And so when the wildfire happened last year, it came to light that although there's these fire hydrants, the community itself doesn't have access to fire protection and firefighting tools that are needed. And so I've been focused as a counselor to address those historic wrongs, but also to create a framework so that we can move forward in an inclusive and accepting environment where we can keep our newcomers here and retain them, because it's been so difficult for families in particular to receive services in their language, to have culturally appropriate recreation services through our municipal recreation programming, but also more importantly, we haven't done a good job listening to how we can create those reparations and reconciliation with the community. So as mayor, I'm focused on addressing the historic legacy issues, and I'm also looking forward to the next generation. I'm not interested only in the next 4 years as a political term. I'm not a career politician. I'm interested in building an HRM that addresses what it is that our communities need for the next generation, because our children are our future. And it's important that we keep them here, that they can thrive, that they can live, work, play, and stay in their communities. And I'm really pleased over the last month and a bit talking to new Canadians who for the first time, even though they lived here for over a decade, for the first time, they're going to be voting in a municipal election because they want to be heard, they feel empowered to engage with politics, and it's these kinds of meetings that help people feel welcome and have the opportunity to become knowledgeable in some of the issues and the platforms and why it's so important for people to vote and to engage. So I'm really happy to be here today and looking forward to your questions in this conversation. And I want to thank the other candidates for being here as well. And I'll pass it over to you, Daryl.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if the mic was ready.
Yeah, good to go.
All right. Good afternoon, folks, and I just want to thank for this opportunity for being here today. My name is Daryl Johnson, and I am also running for mayor. I believe, based on my own little research, that this is a first for me running for mayor, and I think it's the first for the city. That alone leads me to the inclusivity aspect of what we're here to talk about today. I, as a mayor, if elected, one of the first things I want to do is to continue to grow and move in that direction as we get more people coming into our into our city, into our municipality, we are quickly becoming a more diverse and inclusive community. And I want to be able to lead that and thrive with it. I grew up here, right here in the North End, just across the street. I can remember as a young school-age kid going to the Kumala Street Baptist Church dinner program or lunch program, also known as the dinner church program back then. I went to St. Pat's Junior High School, which is now just a freestanding building. And I can talk a little bit more about that because it's in one of my plans for the homeless. And I also worked in this community. So being a part of this community and seeing the diversity that we've had growing up here, LGBT community plus, we've had interactions with the Aboriginal, the Micmac Friendship Center, and the programs I was involved in, working in the school system as a student support worker, working with Black African Nova Scotian students and learners. That was pretty encouraging for me to continue with working with people. Did my mic go?
It is. That's good.
Sorry. Continue to work with people who are disadvantaged and lift people up and help give a voice. So I have a lot of experience that's community driven. I'm a community minded person. I'm very passionate about people. I'm very passionate about community, and that's what drives me to wanting to become a politician, because I believe I can lead in that area. So an all-inclusive Halifax or an all-inclusive HRM is something that's very dear to me and very important to me. So I want to be able to lead in that regard. Also, just to add to my experience, my lived experience speaks loud volumes. Because I am an African Nova Scotian male, I had racism almost at a daily level, and it inspired me to write a book. Don't ask if it's published yet, because it's not. I actually wrote it over during COVID, and it's still incomplete, but I do plan on getting that published and getting that out there. It is my personal experiences dealing with racism. So one of the things as a mayor that I would do is to ensure that we have programs, policies in place that deal directly with racism and the impacts of racism. And those policies and those plans will be straight across the board for municipal employees, right on through to our society. So, those are the kinds of things that I have planned right now in terms of diversity and inclusion. I don't know what else I'm missing. Maybe my sports aspect here. Went to Queen Elizabeth High School, which is no longer standing. Was involved in a lot of people connecting there, because it was a huge school, and I had met a lot of people from various backgrounds and cultures. And just recently, 2 years ago, I was working with the province as a stakeholders relations officer. And in that role, my responsibility was to connect with people in the community that were newcomers, that were immigrants, and from various different cultures and backgrounds. So big job, big task, but I was up for it, and I made a lot of connections, and I built a lot of networks, and had that opportunity to fulfill some of those needs. So that's pretty much the experience I have, and that's what I want to lead with the diversity and inclusion aspect of being mayor in this city.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Thank you for joining us, Andy. You are just in time to give us your intro, as that is the stage that we are at. But before we hand it over to you, Andy, I just want to let people know a little bit of housekeeping. We do have our washrooms that are outside the store to the left of the side of the building, and we do have refreshments and some food and some eats for those who are interested. We're going to go ahead and move on to Andy with just a 2-minute, and we're going to dive right into some of the questions that we have. And just to lay off the land, folks, we're going to pose those questions to our candidates, but I want to leave as much room as possible for the room to be heard. So without further ado, you can go ahead, Andy.
It's a pleasure to be at DBDLI today with all of you, and tremendous thanks to the organizers and to you for moderating. I apologize for being late. We live in a very large municipality, and congestion is terrible, so I apologize to have gotten here late from another part of the beautiful municipality. My name is Andy Fillmore. I'm a candidate for mayor in this municipal election. I have most recently been the Member of Parliament for Halifax for the last 9 years, and that was preceded by a 25-year career in city planning. I grew up here in Halifax. I went to Queen Elizabeth High School. Daryl and I were classmates, in fact, at QEH. Some time ago, wasn't it? Way back. And I went to Dalhousie and studied architecture and city planning. Like many people at that time, I had to leave Halifax to find work, and I went to the United States and worked in a variety of different planning and architectural firms. I worked on large infrastructure projects. I worked as a town planner for a small town of 7,500 people in rural Maine. But eventually, as happens, when we leave Nova Scotia, the homing beacon goes off, and I came home in 2005 to take a job in the HRM City Planning Department, where I was very fortunate to lead a project called the HRM by Design Downtown Plan that helped the renaissance that we see in our downtown now to happen, to get cleared out some policy barriers that were preventing that from happening. In 2015, I became the Member of Parliament for Halifax, and in my time there, I was able to move the federal investment in the riding of Halifax from near the lowest levels of investment across the country to the 8th most invested in federal riding across the country. And we can see the impact of those hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in investments, much of it responding to council priorities all around our municipality in terms of protection of open space, getting on the track to have our Canada's third national urban park in Blue Mountain Birch Cove Lakes, electric buses, support for startups, support for oceans research, for biotech, for shipbuilding, for our research institutions. It's all around us, and I think it was a very impactful time. When Mayor Savage announced that he would not be reoffering, I had to have a look around our municipality, and I saw through my planner's eyes that we were facing the challenges of homelessness and shortage of housing, of congestion and transit system that's not serving its customers and its population as well as it should be. And I thought, a combination of nearly a decade in Parliament, working collaboratively with all levels of government and the public and private sector, and a 25-year career in city planning, this is what this moment calls for. So I was called home for the second time, this time from Ottawa, to run to become HRM's next mayor, to help to make sure that the growth that we're experiencing works for us and not against us, as it feels like it is sometimes right now. So thank you for your kind attention, and I look forward to a wonderful conversation today.
Thanks so much, Andy. All right, folks, so we're just going to go ahead and delve right into some of the questions that we have. And just in the light of some of the points that you brought forth yourself, Waye and Pam, in terms of the demographics of the city, having increased largely over the past few years. So we're just going to go ahead and touch with that with the influx of immigrants, what are you going to do as mayor to ensure that the city staff is reflective of these changes, knowing that council is actually elected, and that's not necessarily anything in jurisdiction of mayor. However, the city staff is something that you would be able to have a push and pressure in. So I'll just like to touch on that and see how you would be able to, what you would do with those changes that are being reflected. Maybe we can start with yourself, Pam. Sure. Like I said, I'm not going to go by order. I like to keep a little bit more and keep you on your toes there. So go ahead, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So I appreciate that question. So I'm very proud to have been a councillor to adopt the immigration strategy for 2022 and to 2026. We will be moving forward to develop the next iteration of that immigration strategy. And that has well over 30 recommendations in there. And critical to that is the value of ensuring that the municipal staff actually reflects the community that we serve. And so from a human resources perspective, training perspective, ensuring that there are opportunities for the immigrant community, newcomer community to actually be reflected and have access to job training opportunities and be part of this municipal government. There are upwards of 5,000 employees that work for this municipality. And of course, the municipality is half the population of the province. That being said, we have too few people working for the municipality who are within that diverse African diaspora. And so I believe that it's important for us to lead, and by leading, we must provide opportunities for the community to engage and work and be hired, but not just to be hired, but to be retained. So each of our divisions in our business units, including police, fire, recreation, throughout this strategy, have a directive to ensure that they're reaching and engaging within the newcomer community and providing opportunities such as through trade fairs, whether it's working closely with Immigrant Settlement Association, for example, to showcase some of the job opportunities that are available, but also we have to advise up. We, as a municipality, must work closely with our provincial government to ensure that the African Nova Scotian Affairs and the Immigration Department and all of those political bureaucrats and ministers and so on recognize that the work we're doing at the municipality so that we align with them. Now, Halifax Partnership has been doing a great job working with the provincial government to showcase around the world what great opportunities there are here. But when newcomers come to HRM, it's about 80% of them actually settle within Halifax. And that's wonderful, but we're not retaining them. And we're not retaining them because we haven't done a great job creating that cultural space where people can thrive and families can thrive. And ensuring that our staff are aware of the need to change policies, the need to adjust our programs so that it is more welcoming. Our fire service and police service have very dedicated programs in which to do hiring within the newcomer community, but in particular, we're not retaining them, as I said before. So I am in favor of moving forward with a new approach with our immigration strategy and ensuring that the employment aspect and the internal focus of that immigration strategy, which will be from 2026 to 2030, actually focuses much greater opportunities through mentorship, entrepreneurship development, and ensuring that we are also recognizing that we should be hiring contractors and Black-owned businesses. And I think it was just last year that we had the first, or maybe it was earlier this year, we had the Black-owned Restaurants Association, and ensuring that through our catering policies, we have a lens to ensure that we're providing more opportunities for local businesses that are owned by newcomers and Black businesses.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And just a heads up to the candidates, it would be 3 minutes per question because I want to make sure.
Thank you.
And I will be keeping the time. So if I interrupt you in the middle of it, well, it's chop, move on. But but that's good. So I'm just going to come to you, Waye, with that question. Yeah.
Okay, so hello.
Hello. Testing.
Hello. Not yet. We're almost there. I think I can hear. Can I hear it?
Yeah,
Is it
there
there?
you go.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, so the first thing I've heard loud and clear, meeting with the diverse communities, with the African diaspora, with the Muslim communities, is that the mayor's office needs to be more diverse. That's the one thing the mayor can directly control. You have 6 employees in that office, or you do right now, and that is a concern for people to see that diversity in the community is reflected. But I'm given some heart. We just swore in our first African Nova Scotian police chief the days are all blurring in the last day or two. And it was interesting because when Don McLean was up there, when Chief McLean was up there talking, giving his speech, he talked about how, and I hadn't realized that till he said it, he had been in the cadet training that had happened to actually try and make the Halifax Police in 1993 not a largely exclusively white institution. And so he was brought in through that targeted recruitment designed to make that cultural change, and he had made it all the way to the end to become the chief of police. And while police at times maybe isn't exactly always the best example for all things considered for what we're talking about today with diversity, that's a triumph that we have seen that change, that that Dawn has achieved that goal. One of the things that I hear a lot and that I've observed is that government, not just HRM, but a lot of government, a lot of institutions are really focused on DEI, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And diversity, equity, inclusion has become a series of check boxes that we have to check off so that we can say, hey, look, we're okay, right? We're good. And it doesn't really lead to deep cultural change. It doesn't really, it's become kind of like performative and theatrical, and it's something that I'm increasingly starting to feel is kind of wasting your time and my time. If we want to see real change, we want to actually see the culture of the municipality change, we need to go deeper than that. An example, which I have been using, is at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I'm on one of their boards in Ottawa, and they're doing AREI plus R, so anti-racism, inclusion, and equity plus reconciliation. And that's a different thing, because that's literally empowering staff to go through your entire policy set, your culture, how you hire, how you retain, and changing it with a culturally diverse lens. And I don't think anyone, I don't know if anyone in Atlantic Canada has really done that work, but certainly Halifax hasn't done that, and we need to. And a frame here is to make sure that we are defending these things even when they're hard. And an example of that would be, you know, we've seen examples that were public when YT versus Arthur Maddox happened in the transit situation, where HRM was found to have allowed a person to be harassed because of the color of their skin in the transit system. Now that was about 8-9 years ago now, but has ARVIC, have our African Nova Scotian and African employees gotten the satisfaction that was supposed to come from all the changes that were supposed to happen at that time? And the answer is no, they have not. We have not delivered that yet. So we need to double down. Thank you, 10 seconds. We have to double down and actually make it real. We have to make it so that when I'm meeting with leaders in the African Nova Scotian community and the diaspora who work for HRM, that they know that we're actually doing the work, not just saying we're doing the work. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Daryl, do you want to jump on that?
Sure. Okay, there we are. So basically, one of the things I want to say about diversity and being a leader in that regard, I currently sit on the HRM African Advisory Committee, and that committee is responsible for making recommendations to council and to the mayor about issues that are impacting the Black community. And to Wayne's point that he just made about the police, back in October, a year ago, October, I actually put forward a recommendation to find out exactly why Halifax Regional Police hasn't continued the first Black class that they started back in 1991. Stopped. And again, to Wayne's point, Don McLean, who was part of that program, who just recently became officially chief 2 days ago, there's been no progress. There's been no there's been no more classes that focus on either African Nova Scotians or others. So we need to move that goalpost. There's been some progress, and not just in police, but there hasn't been enough. Fire service, for example. We had issues with our HRM regional fire service in terms of racism. And I think we have a deputy chief now who is African Nova Scotian, and I believe he's going to be chief very soon. So we need to keep moving that goalpost. Transit, another issue. I know years back, I'm quite old, but I remember a racial incident that took place with our bus drivers who was from our community. And then there was some work done, but not enough. So the point that I'm trying to make is that we, as a city, it's all about policy and implementation, and then be able to see it through. We've had some good things start up, and then we drop the ball, and then we go back to status quo. So if I was in that lead position, I would ensure that those policies and those programs that are implemented that help lift people up and hear those voices continue. We have, as I mentioned earlier in my opening introduction, we have a large newcomer population, an immigrant population. So now we need to start shifting gears and start thinking about what implementations what programs can we have developed that help our newcomers, our immigrants. We have to look at linguistic programs and others that are inviting and inclusive, so that we can be better as a community and as a city and as a municipality. So those are the kinds of things that I have experience in that I want to see and help grow with, because we are changing. We're no longer 1970s type of Halifax where the majority was just like Wayne said earlier, like the police force was all white. We need to get past that. We need to level the playing field, and the only way to do that is to recruit, retain, and implement those policies. And that's kind of where I see things, going in that direction.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daryl. Andy?
I'm going to start very broadly and then narrow this down to
You've got 3 minutes to do
HRM.
so.
I can do it. Canada is one of the most multicultural nations on the planet. It's our great strength. That multiculturalism is protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a really unique way in the world. I've been very proud over the last 9 years to be an MP in a government team. That team of MPs looked like Canada in many ways. We were a reflection of the racial and cultural makeup of our country, and I think that was a very important thing to focus on in the recruitment of candidates. As an MP, I was very fortunate to be involved in the creation and the rollout of something called the Atlantic Immigration Pilot. That immigration pilot was largely in response to the Ivany report that talked about how our provincial economy was going to go over a cliff if we did not embrace and expand our immigration programs to create more, or to welcome more working age immigrants into the province, and that has happened beautifully. Our economy corrected. In fact, the economy is achieving so much now that we're growing beyond our wildest dreams, and sometimes too fast. But we're feeling that in terms of housing and healthcare right now. But those are manageable solutions. Let's bring it to Halifax. I think Halifax is one of the most multicultural cities in one of the most multicultural countries, and it's really important that not just our workforce at the municipality reflect the composition of our community, but as much as we can, the council room should reflect that as well. So I would always look forward to working on recruiting candidates were I to become mayor, making sure that candidates from all elements of our community felt welcome putting their names on ballots, and I think there's probably still some work to do there, both from gender and from ethnicity and different cultural backgrounds. The responsibility of the municipality to remove barriers to allowing people from all different backgrounds to apply and compete equally with people who maybe don't look like them is going to be really, really important moving forward as we become increasingly multicultural here. I think I will leave it there for now. Maybe I'll just close by saying, as in most things that a municipal government does, we do it better when we listen to community. And the committee at City Hall now that focuses on diversity and inclusion will become a very increasingly important voice and conduit for community to communicate directly to the city, and I look forward to working with that as well if elected.
Absolutely, and you are right in terms of getting feedback from the community when it comes to such kinds of topics. And so I'd imagine that community does have questions or follow-up questions from some of the points that you raised as you were answering this particular question, and we want to make sure to leave room for them to do so. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and switch up some gears and take us into another route and touch on some of the other things that you were all speaking about, which is obviously things such as housing and transit. Let me start here maybe in terms of when it comes to transit. On the topic of congestion, because when September hit this year, I know I'm not the only one who's been seeing what's going on in our beautiful city here. But when September hit, there was, I think the largest congestion was seen over the years has taken place this year. So on that topic of congestion, Pam, You mentioned in the past, some of the past debates that you had about dismantling the Halifax Transit. Could you maybe provide a little bit more insight and clarity on how that will actually improve traffic and travel accessibility? And then maybe we can then travel to the rest of the candidates.
Great, thank you. Happy to start again. So I am suggesting that we need to transform Halifax Transit, formerly known as Metro Transit. It was Metro Transit focused on the urban areas, and Halifax Transit has attempted to address affordable public transit in more suburban areas. We have community transit. There's 3 community transit, Bay Rides, Musco Rider, as well as East Hants Rider, who are focused on the rural communities. But we don't have a comprehensive transit system because they're operating in silos. So I'm recommending that we transform Halifax Transit into a capital region transportation system with the abutting municipalities that are sending in tens of thousands of people into HRM because they work here, but they don't live here. They work in neighboring municipalities, which have become, commuter sheds for folks that work at the hospital, the universities, Burnside, and so on. But they don't pay any funding whatsoever to the maintenance of our roads, to fill those potholes, or to manage any of that infrastructure. And so by working with the other municipalities, because of the fact that they are growing very quickly, East Hants is a great example. In the next few years, they are exploding by population by 70%. They're growing so quickly, and they're trying to build their own transit system. But we have one. We just need to break down the silos, work together better to create a capital region transportation system so that we can be better connected. And we can do that with the provincial government by working with those municipalities, creating park and rides so that people can have express routes to come inside. We have many express routes right now with park and rides, but it's been slow to build those. We already have a bus rapid transit system plan in place, so that will continue to move forward. But I believe that the best time to plan for light rail was yesterday. If we are going to grow as a city and remain competitive nationally and internationally, we need to think bigger about using rail. We used to have wonderful rail line for over 100 years. Those are gone now. So now it's time for us to think bigger. Edmonton, they had less than 500,000 people when they started planning for light rail. They now have a wonderful transportation system. But what light rail and bus rapid transit and park and rides actually do is it gets people out of their single occupancy vehicles. It helps us meet our climate change goals. It creates affordable transit for people, and it helps people through essential transportation, whether it's to get to the hospital, whether it's to get to your job, but it also helps us economically because it means that businesses can get employees to work. And it helps us grow resilient local economies where people can live, work, play, thrive, and stay. And that's extremely important in an economy like ours that depends on a harbor, because all of those trade goods and so on that come in through our harbor need to get out onto the streets and get up to New Brunswick, for example, to the airport. Our problem right now is those trucks are sitting in traffic and congestion, and that's why 2 major shipping lines are actually going to the St. John Harbor instead of Halifax. So if we continue to lose our productivity and our competitiveness, our economy will lose jobs. And when we lose jobs, good paying jobs, we're in trouble as an economy. So that's why I'm suggesting we need to start thinking bigger. If we want to be a big city and double our population, it's time to act that way now, break down the silos, and work with our partners all across the province.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Andy, I'll come right to you then.
Thank you. Yeah, look, it's gotten really hard to move around our municipality. My lateness today was an example of that. Buses are running late, ferries are being canceled, people are missing classes, people are missing shifts. I've heard stories about people being losing their jobs because of not being able to get to their shifts on time. Delivery vans are sitting mired in traffic. The wheels of commerce are being brought to their knees. So we have to do something more. There are a number of different vectors that impact on the way we move around our municipality. One thing that we can do immediately is to shift the time of day and time of week that road work is being done. I think we've all been in the situation of during business hours coming across a closed lane or a shut down intersection because of road work, when that work really should be being done at night or on the weekends, so people can still get to work or school, and the vans can still get to where they need to go. So that's an easy one. But the bigger question is, how do we get more people out of private vehicles and into their cars? There is a long-term play here. DALTRAC is the Transportation Research Lab at Dalhousie, and Dr. Hassan Habib released his findings a few weeks ago that were reported in the local media. The light rail system that one of the candidates discusses would be about 10 times the cost of a bus rapid transit system that would yield the same outcomes. And the light rail system would take about 15 years to actually get into place where it was usable. BRT, or bus rapid transit, is about a tenth the cost and can be rolled out in about 3 or 4 years. So it's a much shorter term, much more reasonable goal. And the good news there is that there is a tremendous new federal fund called the Permanent Public Transit Fund that is wealthy enough of a fund to help us with bus rapid transit, but it would never, the whole national fund for public transportation wouldn't even pay for the light rail in Halifax, let alone the rest of the country. So we need to be reasonable about this. It's also very fortuitous timing because the province has created the Joint Regional Transportation Agency. They're very focused on doing what Pam suggests, the Councillor Lovelace suggests the city should take on. We don't need to take it on. The province is already doing it through JRTA, creating a transportation agency that will move residents of Nova Scotia around, regardless of or irrespective of municipal boundaries. So that's their mission. It's a provincial scale approach, and our best move with regard to that is to be a very, very good partner to the provincial government, in the same way that we must be a good partner to them on housing, but to be a good partner with them through the JRTA. While we get the BRT system up and running in the next 3 or 4 years, there are a number of things that we can do to improve the current transit system, largely using data and easier to pay systems and more GPS data for users to make it more predictable.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Andy. Tara?
I believe the commuter rail is the best route to go, in spite of a price tag. If we're looking into the future of Halifax and our municipality growing with the numbers that we're experiencing right now, that is probably the most viable option. And if we have cooperation with our federal and provincial governments to form some sort of team, I believe that that's something that can be done. I know there's been conversations about this before with council, and you, Pam and Wayne, you guys probably know more about this than me, but I don't know where the ball got dropped, but I think that needs to be at least revisited. The second thing, so we got a couple things going on. So it's not just transit. Our infrastructure is unable to keep up with the growing population. So our congestion that we're experiencing now with our traffic and high peak times, traffic times, is part of our city being outdated. Our roads are outdated, our traffic circles are outdated, so they need to be revisited as well and improved. And in some of those areas, like the Armdale Rotary, it's old. So I believe a better traffic circle, and maybe in the future, 1 or 2 overpasses to help alleviate some of that congestion and some of that traffic in those peak times. The second area is our Joseph Hall Exchange, Windsor Exchange area. That's not working right now, and I'm sure we've all experienced it. Coming home from work, where you're trying to merge from that Joseph Hall ramp onto trying to get on the bridge, it's just not working. So a traffic circle, an overpass in the future for Halifax is probably going to help alleviate some of that traffic. But getting back to the transit, having bus links that are traveling at a more frequently rate to reduce less times, and to reach our urban and our rural areas that are sprawling and developing. We need to be able to have carpools in those rural areas to encourage people to leave their cars in a carpool and then take the link buses into work or commuter rail. And that's going to help alleviate some of that congestion. And I believe if we get federal government backing financially as well as provincial, it's an easy solution to solving our traffic congestion.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Daryl. Waye, do you want to finish off with that one?
Sure. Thanks, Otney. The congestion is way worse. It is. And there's no argument about that. We have 70,000 more people than we had 3 years ago. We have businesses and especially the government making people come back to work instead of working at home all at the same time. And then on top of that, we had the hospital at Bell Road closed, and we're doing Cogswell at the same time to reconnect the North End to downtown. And those are the kind of jobs, like we're already doing 247 work in Cogswell. That's happening all the time to meet the deadline of having Barrington open by December before it snows. And Bell Road similarly has been going pretty much 20 hours a day. So, even if you move to nighttime work, that doesn't fix that. Those are the main impediments that are causing the traffic to lock up on the peninsula right now. And so, look, when we talk about how to fix this, we have the plan. Like, we're glad that we got federal money to fund our plan for rapid transit and fast ferry. I'm very proud of having developed that program. Money's been coming too slow. It's been taking too long. It should be in the ground right now,
Yep.
and we'll continue to work on that. But the good news is that the federal government, as Andy said, just announced its plan, and the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, which is something that we're all happy to see. We like to see that the province is willing to coordinate with us. Our CAO and our strategic planning executive director are on that steering committee with the JRTA. But it isn't HRM's job to tell Truro and East Hants how to do their transit. It's not our job to run a bus or a light rail to Bridgewater. So the province has this agency, and our hope is, our belief is, with this new federal money, that report will come in November, December, and we'll have a clear path to get the money to build bus rapid transit and fast ferries. I'm going to pause there. I'm going to say the fast ferries, everybody knows what those are. That's great. We're excited to get those 3 routes going. Those will be in the water in about 3 years. I had someone after a debate, I think it was the Cole Harbour debate, say, what is bus rapid transit? Because we don't really explain it. It's like light rail, except it's on rubber wheels instead of steel wheels. It's in a dedicated bus lane instead of being on its own rail. And the idea is that the bus rolls in, you can board and leave through all 3 doors on the articulated bus. You're going to have nice heated shelters. They're going to be 300 or 400 meters apart. Eventually that turns into light rail, but that's 20 or 30 years away. My kids or my grandkids are going to build that. The thing, as Andy said, that we love and why we proposed bus rapid transit at City Council was, if we have the funding, which we think is coming this fall, we can have that done in 3, maybe 4 years on the outside. And that makes an immediate material difference for all the folks that are stuck in traffic right now. In the short term, 20 seconds. In the short term, I propose a traffic operations center. Most of our light signals can be controlled remotely. So when we see traffic back up on Roby Street, like we saw when a couple of weeks ago, you can open it up and you can have the traffic going. We need to have rural point-to-point transit, more funding. And we need to allow people who use rural transit to transfer into the Metro Transit system. And we can't forget about active transportation. One of the big things that's kind of been lost in this election cycle is we have e-bikes coming, like a bike share program like you see in big cities in April or May. We're going to have private operators coming in and delivering that, and that'll be transformative. And I think it'll mean a lot of people on the peninsula in downtown Dartmouth won't have to get in a car to go from one hospital to the other, or to go from one university campus to the other. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Again, we are cruising through. And again, I'm hoping that we are hearing everything and are taking our notes so that we make sure to ask the questions in line with some of the things that we have spoken about today. We're going to also now go ahead and touch on the issue of housing. Mm-hmm. So, of course, we are all seeing some of the things that are happening in our city in terms of like the homelessness that's taking place and encampments everywhere. So I would like to know, how will the candidates deal or handle with high cost of housing as well as rental prices in Nova Scotia? In past debates, most, if not all of you, did mention alluded to, I should say, being it a supply issue. But there has to be more of a, I think, nuanced solution, because or something else more than we build more houses, right? So seeing as an increase in development does not ensure that people can afford to actually live in them. So I just want to hear from you, and maybe for this one we'll start with you, Andy, and move from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. There is a supply issue, and it is complex, and we do need a nuanced solution that involves all 3 orders of government and the private sector and the not-for-profit sector as well. So that's the nature of complex problems. The solutions aren't simple. They tend to be complex as well. So I'd like to just sort of start with the municipal level and then sort of work my way up. Right now, there are three things that the municipality could be doing differently to lower the cost of mortgages and to lower the cost of rent. The first thing is to speed up the approval of residential projects, whether that's apartment buildings or single-family homes or mixed-use communities. The application process takes far too long, years in many cases. During those years, costs are carried, like application fees and water hookup fees. Those costs all gather interest throughout the approval and construction period, and at the end there's a big bill due, and the way it gets paid is it goes onto the rent and the mortgage of the house that comes out the other end. The second thing is HRM can open up more low-cost land for redevelopment. There is a good example in Morris Lake East in Dartmouth that has been awaiting approval for development for nearly a decade now, and the builder there is confident that they could deliver houses in that area at about $100,000 per door cheaper than the current municipal average because of the low cost of land. And there is other land like that around the municipality that is waiting to be approved as well. So that's the second thing. The third thing that the municipality can do is to remove municipal policy barriers to innovative construction techniques like modular housing, which in most areas of HRM now needs a poured foundation to sit on, which could add $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000 to the cost of a home unnecessarily. Those homes could be put on pilings or onto slabs. Another innovative technique is the flat-packed factory-built homes that get built in factories that could be running 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, churning out homes at very low costs. But right now, the two factories we have between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia are just running a few shifts a week because of the policy barriers. There are no customers for those homes, so we need to change those things. Those three things can bring down the cost of new homes in HRM by double-digit percentage points in just a couple of years. But that's not enough. We need to work with our provincial partner through programs that subsidize housing to make sure that folks, if needed, are only required to pay 30% of their household income per month for housing. We rely on our provincial partners to do that with and for us. And then, of course, the federal government has a role to play as well through substantial contributions to the municipality through the Rapid Housing incentive program. So that's delivered several hundred low-cost housing units in Halifax in HRM over the last number of years, and the Canada-Nova Scotia Housing Benefit, which is a housing subsidy, a rental subsidy that goes directly to a person, not to a unit, but to a person, and it's the beginning of the recognition of housing as a human right. If that person has to move, the subsidy goes with them wherever they move. So those are really important things that we need to get our arms around.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andy. Darryl?
One of the things I think we need to do is to cut through the bureaucratic red tape. I've grown up in the city, and I see, and I'm sure you all see, there's probably about 37 cranes right now up in the sky, and the amount of buildings that are going up are for people who cannot afford them, people who can afford them. So we need to find a way to close that loophole so that we award contracts to folks who want to commit to building low-income housing. The faster we do that, the easier it's going to be for us to level the playing field. And eventually we're going to be able to have people in affordable homes. So that's one thing. The second thing that we need to do is to find maybe incentive programs. I think Andy kind of touched on that a little bit. People are struggling, so we need to find ways to house people and help people be able to afford a home. One of the ways that we need to do that is community consultation, programming, and cooperation from our provincial and federal government. It's an easy solution, but nothing seems to be working because there seems to be so much bureaucratic red tape. So we need to be able to somehow skip through that, implement stronger policy so that we can take this housing crisis, affordable housing crisis, a little bit more serious, and try and catch up and stop awarding contracts to builders who want to just build those places like the luxury apartments and the condos, and get them to commit to building lower income housing and affordable housing, because that sector or that population of people keep getting left out. And it's part of the reason why we have a homeless crisis right now, because people cannot afford the rents that are like, what is it, 2,000 plus for a 2-bedroom now, depending on which part of the city you're in. So we need to be able to find creative ways to prevent those things from happening so that we can find housing for that population.
Thank you so much, Daryl. I'm going to skip you, Pam, and go to Waye to keep it interesting there.
You love keeping us guessing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adni. So I feel this very directly. My kids are 24 and 30. The 30-year-old lives in an apartment on Rector. Only one of the burners on the stove works. They're afraid to call the landlord to get it fixed because the landlord appears to have forgotten they only pay $14.50 a month. And my 24-year-old lives at home because they can't afford to move out. And so I understand, I'm living it, right? You know, we are worried about where our kids are going to live and they don't want to leave Halifax. And so there's a whole bunch of different buckets of things that need to happen. We do need more market housing. As expensive as it is, as inaccessible as it is to a lot of people, no one's going to get out of a affordability crisis and a housing crisis by not having more housing getting built. But it's also important to recognize that the market doesn't build below market housing. They just don't, right? And the price points that are being set are based on what the market thinks it can, what the market operators think they can bear. It's interesting to hear over and over again this idea that every bit of expense added to this by the government is going straight to the rent. But the fact is that market renters are what are called profit takers in economics, right? So you make it cheaper, they're still going to charge the most they think they can get in the market. That's why we're seeing old houses, like where my kids live, being afraid the rent's going to be jacked up to $3,000. Nothing will have changed there. There's no new expenses. That's where the market is sitting right now. So we need to deliver more housing faster to the market for sure, but we also need more affordable housing. And the affordable housing piece requires all levels of government to help. We need to be supporting not-for-profits and co-ops. Sitting here in Buddy Day, the feds through CMHC and the city through a land swap and some zoning enabled the first co-op housing happening right there on the corner right across from the Marquee Club to be built in 20, 25 years. We need more of that. More housing was being built in the early 90s than is being built now. Affordable housing needs to be built. And so what I'm promising in my platform is a couple of things. Housing Halifax, an agency modeled on what they're doing in Burnaby, BC, where the municipality set up an arm's length agency to take the land that we have, our ability to give ourselves entitlements, change zoning bylaws, low cost loans, the fact that the federal and provincial government are often looking for municipal inputs, and for us to get more involved in helping to cause affordable housing to be built. Not to own it, but to work with not-for-profits, with co-ops, and with private sector to do that. And it's been, early signs are it's very successful in Burnaby. I also want to propose that we talk to the province about becoming the delivery agent for what used to be called Metro Housing Authority, which is something that, as a councillor who has a number of the manors in the area, and we're just south of Uniacke Square, is really important to people. Out of time? And I think that's something that we need to explore as long as the money comes. I had to add that. Thank you. Sorry.
No, perfect. Thanks so much. Pam, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Daye. So I'm going to take a little bit more of a human-centered approach to my response. We are in an affordability crisis. We're in a housing crisis. Since 2015, homelessness has risen by 500%. And that's just a reality. And those are just the numbers that we know about. So people who are experiencing homelessness or those who are experiencing housing precarity and about to potentially be homeless, those are the folks who I'm really worried about. I know that we've got over 30,000 units being built. We've got many more in the pipeline. There's more and more housing that's going to come. The Construction Association is telling us they just need more workers. The provincial government, the municipality is working together with NSCC to build up those construction workers, to get them trained, to get them on the job quickly. We know that we've got some regulatory barriers that we need to address with the provincial government, such as having no fees or low fees for nonprofit and community housing organizations to hook up to Nova Scotia Power, hook up to Halifax Water. These are things that we can do with their policy barriers that are in place that just need to be dealt with. But more importantly, we have to recognize that housing is healthcare, and we have to change the culture within HRM and within all of our bureaucracy to understand the importance of housing. In the UK, they have a policy. You're not allowed to be outside for over 2 nights. If you have spent 2 nights outside, that's it, you get housing. And it's on the government to figure that out, to work with municipal, provincial, and federal government to have that committed goal. So I believe that what we need is a mayor who's going to commit to shared goals with our partners, all orders of government, saying that's it. We have to address the homelessness issue. We have to ensure the human rights, that housing is a human right, to ensure that all orders of government are on side with having that shared goal. How many new affordable housing units do we need per year? What community organizations can we scale up to support that work? What do they need in order to ensure that they continue to do the work that they do? We've got the YWCA and Clayton Developments, the largest developer in HRM right now. They partnered to create 32 units. That's awesome. We've got to see more of that partnership, break down the silos, and actually have a committed goal to creating changes that actually see more affordable units built. But as far as market housing goes, and affordable housing, but I will say market housing, we just need to reduce the time and the process. So I'm proposing that we have, number one, a capital infrastructure commission that actually brings the partners, the provincial, federal, municipal, all the utilities together to have a combined goal of where can we build and when. Because we can propose anything we want, but then there's Nova Scotia Power saying, no, we can't do that. We don't have the grid in place. We're going to have to take some time. Same with looking at the next wastewater treatment plant, the next watershed. These are all really important issues that need to be addressed. But also, I think what we can do is digitize the entire process. We've got land use bylaws. We've got the building codes. That all needs to be in one app. And we also need to have pre-approved building plans. So a community developer can come in, grab those pre-approved building plans, and go and build. It shouldn't take this long, because when we add time to the building process, we add cost to the building process. So it's important that we actually recognize where the gaps are, how to streamline the system, and build more homes faster. But they've got to be affordable. So as we continue to grow, we need to scale up the nonprofit community organizations and support them, as well as the immigrant association groups. I've heard from people who have said, I can't put my name on the rental application because it just gets thrown out. So we also have to address the racism within HRM and the racism that exists because of the fact that the landlords are not renting to newcomers and folks that have different names. So I think we've got a lot of work to do at the municipality to break down that systemic barrier and ensure that the landlords themselves are responsive and accountable. So that's why I am supportive of a landlord registry, to make sure that we know that people are living in safe, welcoming, and also affordable housing. But I guess I'm not sure how much time I have left, but I can go on this topic, and I hope you ask me some questions about it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So in the light of time and wanting to make sure we proceed to folks in the room who want to ask questions, I think we're going to go ahead and open up the room now and have some questions posed to our candidates. I think we have a microphone that's going to be going around. So we can do this in various ways in terms of, like, if you have a specific question toward a specific candidate, or if you have a question that would be posed to all candidates, keeping in mind we are trying to keep track of time. So the floor is open.
Virginia, right in there.
Yeah.
Hi. Testing? Testing? It's on, okay. So, hi, first of all, my name is Virginia Hinch, and I would be remiss if I did not tell you that I am a candidate for District 8 in Halifax Peninsula North. One of the questions that I do have, and it can be all or maybe even Waye. When it comes to, and Pam, at that question. So when it comes to St. Pat's Alexander and Bloomfield School, these parcels of land are owned by developers who literally done nothing with them thus far. My community is concerned about what the land looks like at this point and how it can be addressed today. I believe it's up to the developer to maintain these lands so it reflects the community, and right now, St. Pat's Alexander itself does not reflect how we want our community to look. So my question is, what can you propose that we do for St. Pat's, Bloomfield, and have those discussions with the developers to get them to address this issue starting today when the new council begins.
I'll go. Great question. We were at the meeting together at the North Branch Library after the court decision came down that took away the opportunity to restore that land to the community. And it's been a tough thing for the community ever since. And so I would say St. Pat's Alex and Bloomfield are slightly different in that, the St. Pat's Alex lands there's a challenge because of that court case, but I think we're running out the clock on the ability to buy that back. And I think that, there is an argument, it was public, it was in all Nova Scotia and other newspapers about whether or not they have commenced building something there or not. And my view is unless they get serious about tearing that building down and restoring the Andrew Cobb building and get building right away, that the municipality should activate the buyback and take that land back, and that it should come back to the community. Bloomfield is a much clearer contract, and just to give you an idea about how the new buybacks work now since the issues that happened before my time with both St. Pat's, Alex, and Tex Park downtown, is that they have between 5 and 7 years, depending on the contract, to build, and often we can buy back for 95% of what they paid for it. So you walk out with especially when the land has gone up, to restore those to community ownership and to turn those into deliberate, mixed, affordable market housing, I think is essential. I think we need to do that right away as soon as we can, if they don't get building.
Well, with the developers, what they're doing now, if you've seen St. Pat's, you see how overgrown it is. You'll see how... I'm sorry. So with St. Pat's right now, how it looks, you see it's overgrown. People have died. There are so many things that are going on in that particular area that does not reflect the area. I mean, when it comes to Hope Blooms being right beside it, when it comes to a child's playground being right beside it, this is unacceptable how this developer has kept his land.
Yeah, I think what we've learned is we need to strengthen the minimum standards, and then we need to be prepared to enforce them. And the unfortunate fact is that the standards are very low right now, and they're barely meeting them, and that's not good enough. We're going to have to do better, and I can only apologize to the community. I can't defend it. It's not okay, especially when with the housing crisis we have, where both those buildings have people living in them because they have nowhere else to go in those unsafe, moldy, fire trap buildings. And I think it's important that we take that step to move forward. That being said, changing the rules and then applying them and potentially being in an argument you're retroactively changing the rules, that is difficult. That's a difficult thing to do. But what isn't difficult is to exercise our rights. If they're not going to move on developing them, even in a high interest environment, to me, that doesn't matter. That's a business risk you took when you bought the property. Let's go, giddy up, let's do something with that land. And I think especially St. Pat's Alex is critical to the kind of future that I think we all want to see happen in this neighborhood, especially involving expanding opportunities for people who currently live or did live in Uniacke Square and the Manors.
Yes.
We do also have some people online, so we will be checking in with those comments as well. Monica?
I wrote my question down because it's long. So I work for the provincial government, and I've seen the benefits that having people who aren't white in senior leadership positions can do for racialized people. I've also seen the ever-present and ongoing nepotism in our province and in our city, and it being about who you know and what your last name is, and how that actively blocks racialized folks from getting ahead. Given that you are speaking to a room of Black and immigrant folks, as mayor, please give me 2 examples of how you're going to change the hiring culture within government of hiring the same people with the same last names.
So that's a question to all candidates, Monica? Okay, well, we're going to have to cruise through that one. We can start with you, Andy. Go ahead.
Sure. Just very quickly, there was a pilot in the federal government's hiring procedures that was the name blind. The names are removed from applications, and I think that's a very powerful tool. The pilot has run. The results of it have not been I haven't seen the results of it yet. I think it's still being run, but I'm going to be looking very closely to see if that was effective and if it had better DEI outcomes. And if you asked for 2, the second one is I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. I don't think any one of the candidates on this dais today would claim to have all the answers. The second one will be listening to community about what ideas come from them about how we can do better. That's where the knowledge is, the people that are living the challenges themselves, not the mayor.
Do we have any takers? Wayne, do you want to go?
I'll go
Daryl,
last.
you want to go? Yeah. Daryl, go ahead.
So one of the things that I would do as mayor, and that's first and foremost, is get rid of the nepotism. It's been around for a long time. There's been jobs that I applied for growing up as a youngster with the provincial government and municipal government that I didn't get because of somebody was related to somebody and so forth, or a friend. So I'd like to see that be eliminated right away. And the way to do that is to have open and fair practices for hiring. So we have our employment opportunities for people of color, diversity inclusion's been around for past 10 years. We need to do better than that. So I would make it a point of mine to make sure that when it comes to hiring, that we do a much better job in recruiting people from various communities that reflect that community, rather than just going by someone's name or who they know, because that is wrong, it's unfair, and it's a practice that needs to stop. So that would be my commitment to ensuring that we open up the doors for better opportunities for others, and so that we're all included.
Thanks so much. Wade, did you want to?
Sure. Would you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So two quick things. I mean, I already mentioned AREI plus R, and I think, Monica, thank you for the question, and it's a great question. We really need to go in. It's not good enough to add another layer of oversight or have a couple of words written down or provide a checklist so that you can have some cover if anyone challenges you on how you've hired. You got to actually go in there with intent to tear apart the culture and the structures in the departments and in the hiring to reformat it around an equitable and inclusive model. And that is work that we have not really fully done yet, and our own employees tell us that. And so we hear that clearly from people who are inside the system. And then the other one, as Andy said, is it's the NSCC teacher in me. We want to meet the people. We always say meet the learners where they're at. We need to meet the community where they're at, right? And some of that work has been done. Some good examples that I would like to see more of are a couple of years ago. It was a while now. It was before COVID. We did a hiring fair with all of the business units at the Black Cultural Center, and it was a opportunity for people who had thought that the city would never hire them to meet people and hire them. Now, we didn't measure the outcome, so I don't know whether it did anything, but at the moment it felt pretty good, right? And like if it had a measurable improvement, that would be great. But also at that time, and because of the ARVIC, the African Nova Scotian employee group, we had also heard that there were impediments to folks who maybe had, like, this is just one example, and I hesitate to use it because I'm not saying that everybody is being denied a job because of this who's coming from the Black community by any stretch, but what we heard was some people who maybe had an issue with the law were being screened out immediately, like they had a run-in when they were 17, and that the online application said, have you ever had a criminal blah, 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 and psh, you're gone, right? And so we had a very sensitive conversation with leaders in the Black community who are like, this is, and they were saying to us, it's not just us, it's lots of people from low-income communities that this has happened, and other communities. There's lots of reasons why this may have happened to someone. If you stole some bubble gum at 17 from a store, does that mean you shouldn't be allowed to be a snowplow driver when you're 30? Right? And so we changed that. And so we need to be systematically, that goes back to AREI plus R, going through those processes, tearing them apart and making sure they're not obstacles, and then measuring to make sure we achieve the goal of being more diverse.
Thanks. Go ahead, Pam.
Yes, thank you. Great question, Monica. So I am going to strike a interfaith advisory committee for the mayor's office. We're going to be working together and meeting in person every quarter. And the importance of this is to bring religious and cultural organization leaders together to advise the mayor on issues that they're seeing so we can be proactive about issues. Now, as far as the hiring is concerned, I don't agree with hiding someone's name. I agree with celebrating their history, their culture, their language. I think our application process should be much more culturally and linguistically responsive. I'd like to see more people that are hired who actually speak multiple languages. I think the application process should not only be in English. I think we have to celebrate the fact that we have French speakers, Arabic. You know, there are so many multicultural people in our community, but we need the community, we need the organization to reflect the community. In order to do that, we've got to break down the systemic racism that's in the system to begin with. We have to create a culture of care within the organization so that we don't have these issues which drive people away from staying once they are finally recruited to work with us. We know that those issues that are systemic are cultural, and they're throughout the society. And so in order to be a leader that ends racism, we actually have to do that. We have to do the hard work, the courageous work, to change the system that's hiring people to begin with. And I don't think that having one trade career day is enough. I think that we have to be continuously working with the organizations to share the job opportunities, to share the line of training. So if you want to be an accountant and work in municipal finance, what is it that you need to do and actually to reach that goal? If you want to work in special education, for example, in recreation, what is the pathway? So that I think that we should be in the schools, we should be explaining to young people exactly how to get engaged within municipal government so that they can start early and they can come to us as students and then continue on a career with the municipality. Because we are continuing to grow, the population is growing, and we know that we need to better reflect the communities that we're serving. So that means doing the hard work up front and addressing the cultural barriers that actually exist today so that we can make a better, stronger organization in the future.
Do we, after that question, do we have one to take online? A question online?
No.
Oh, hi, my name is Daisy Learning. I'm the president of United African Canadian Women's Association. My question today is directed to you, Daryl Johnson, and it is a concern in the immigrant community. People have been reaching out to me that there is a big divide with the immigrants, especially the refugees and the new immigrants coming in, and the Nova Scotians that have been here for 400 years. We have been cut off a lot of programs, and there is a big division and also segregation. So if you are the mayor of Halifax, of Nova Scotia, how are you going to bridge that gap? How are you going to assure us as Black people that we are one? Because sitting here, I can see so many Blacks, but you can't tell who is a Black Nova Scotian that has been here 400 years or who just came yesterday. We all suffer racism, one way or the other. So how are you going to bridge it? And it's open to all of you to see how you can bridge that divide, because we are being cut off so many of our services and scholarships and all those fundings that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you for that question, and thank you for testing my leadership skills. I'm well aware of that, actually. I've been a part of some of those conversations. And actually, when I ran with the PC party, there was a gathering and an event that I attended with the Nigerian community, and I learned about that situation then. That was like 2 years ago. And then, of course, talking to some of my African Nova Scotian friends who also admitted that, yeah, there's an issue, because they felt that the new immigrants coming in from Nigeria and from Africa are taking jobs, which is, it's not true. So one of the things I would do as mayor and as a leader is to pull those communities together. Let's have the leaders sit around the table and let's have a discussion about how we can work well together instead of the opposite. Because we don't want division, and we don't want any, hard feelings or any further developments about where we are. We are here for a common goal, and that is to be played on, or to have equal playing field for jobs, for education, and for other opportunities. So that would be my main goal, is to get people at the table so that we can discuss this, because it is starting, from what I understand now, it is getting worse. There's people with a lot of animosity, so that's the first thing that I would do. The second thing that I would do is go to those leaders individually and separately and have those conversations. They'd be simple conversations like, hey, look, we need to find a way to resolve this issue. Let's think of 2 or 3 things that we can do, and then present it to our Nigerian community and our African community, and figure this out. Because at the end of the day, you already alluded to it, we are one people, we're one community, and we have to learn how to work together and get along together so that we can grow. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. Everybody needs to be positive and moving in the right direction to solve issues, not have animosity. So that's how I would handle that.
That's good. We're going to do, I think, maybe 2 more questions just in the light of time.
Okay, thank you. My name is Muidin Sholuade. We're very appreciative of your presence here today, and I think I have a couple of double-headed questions for all the candidates. First off, how will your administration support community programs that focuses on the social and cultural inclusion of immigrants and people of color in Halifax? That will be my first question. And my double-headed question will be that government representation. How will you ensure that immigrants and people of color have greater representation and voice in the city governance, including advisory council and leadership position? Thank you.
So I think one of that question, you folks kind of answered that in the earlier one. So maybe we can go with the first question in terms of the recreational programs to community.
Sure. Well, maybe I'll jump in there. And maybe it's a bit repetitive, but I talked about the importance of supporting the multicultural nature of HRM and continuing to welcome that and propel it forward. One thing I didn't get a chance to talk about is the importance of cultural expression in HRM. I like some people in the room, many people in the room. I grew up here, and I have seen Halifax change remarkably when it was not a multicultural city at all, and when you really heard one language when you walked down the street, and now you hear every language in the world. I grew up when the cultural presentations might have been, some bagpipes, but now, today I came from the 48th annual Hindu celebration in Bedford. The world is in Halifax right now, and it's going to be really important that as we navigate through an increasingly complex world, people are divided right now. People are looking for reasons to call people right or wrong. The social media is tearing communities apart. It's going to be increasingly important that our municipal government and our leaders at all levels are creating safe spaces for cultural expression, safe spaces for people, relating maybe back to the previous question, safe spaces for people to talk about their differences. Sometimes talking with people from another viewpoint, talking with people that hold a different perspective is even most important when you disagree with them. That's when we need to come together the most. So I think it's incumbent on a mayor and any leader at any level to create those spaces for cultural expression and for interchange and intercourse, that people can uncover the fact that we all actually can be for each other. We don't need to be for ourselves and just for ourselves. We all can be for each other. And I think there's a role for the mayor and all that.
Go ahead, Ray.
So I think this is building on something I heard both from a number of different communities of newcomers, though I was also told not to call them newcomers if they've been here for like 1 or 2 or 3 generations. And so there's a cultural competency piece that I think is missing, especially in recreation. If I gather your question properly, we know that there are programs and services and buildings that get built that can't serve all the communities, that swimming pools aren't being done in a way that Muslim women feel comfortable going to use them, or families, that changing rooms, all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's a lot of deep learning that needs to happen as the city becomes more diverse, to understand those challenges that simply, I'm an optimist, so I try and believe that. I don't think anybody's doing any of those things on purpose. Certainly, like we saw that when we were faced with becoming more accessible, that our staff became increasingly horrified, realizing how what they had been building was wrong and inaccessible, and then went to great lengths to fix that and make sure it didn't happen again. I think we have to go that step beyond to introduce that cultural competency to make sure that all the people from around the world that we understand what their cultural needs are when we're renovating or building a new facility or designing a program, to make sure that it can truly be accessible to everybody. And I think that's a huge bit of work. And yeah, I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thanks so much. One more question there.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
Sorry, I just would like to answer that question. It's an excellent question. Thank you. So as I've mentioned before, I think it's really important for the mayor's office to be the leader, to create the cultural change that we need to see in our municipality and in our province as a whole. The mayor holds a very important position, actually, in Atlantic Canada, because we are the capital region of Atlantic Canada. We're also the only full-time council in Atlantic Canada. So, you know, the mayor has a strong voice in changing and growing and understanding across the entire Atlantic region. That being said, when I visit food banks, for example, I continuously hear that close to 50% of the people who are going to food banks are refugees, that they are new here in Canada, and they are trying to make their way, and yet they are wondering, why did we come to Canada? So yes, we do have a division, and that division is the fact that we are not taking care of one another. And I agree with my colleague, Councillor Mason here, that we have to be culturally responsive. But we cannot do that work unless we're listening and paying attention to the voices and lifting those voices up and providing a space for people to be heard. That being said, that's why I am proposing an interfaith advisory council with cultural and ethnic leaders and religious leaders who actually can advise the mayor's office on some of the quick short-term things that we need to address immediately, such as the recreation programs, such as when we're creating buildings, making them culturally responsive, but also ensuring that we are celebrating the cultures that we have here, not just once a year, you know, not just through a festival, but actually recognizing them through the communications and the information that we're providing. This election is a great example. I had to go to the municipal office and ask, where's the communication in French? Where's the communication on how to vote in Arabic? We are missing an opportunity to build relationships and have a responsive relationship to the community that we are here to serve. So I want to thank you for your question, because I think we do have a lot of good work that we can do together.
Thanks so much. Last question.
Oh, can I get a turn on that one?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Terrell.
I'll be quick because I know we're running out of
absolutely.
time. Thank you for your question. Just to build on more what Pam just said. So as a leader and as a mayor, one of the things that I have is that ability to connect with all communities. And my fiance sitting right here would be able to collaborate this. I am well connected in the Filipino community, the Muslim community, and the Nigerian community. You and I met 2 years ago. So building those relationships and having those connections are very important when you're talking about diversity and inclusion, and having that ability to go into those communities and affect change and show that you can relate and you can work well in those communities is very important. So that's one of the skill sets that I have, and I hopefully want to be have that chance to be able to do that as mayor. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Yeah, go ahead with your last question.
Thank you so much for the platform. My name is Trimo Maganga, and my question is more directed to Andy, but another candidate can feel free to jump in and we can weigh their opinions from there. Yeah, so I'm more interested in climate change issues in terms of their impact on African Nova Scotian communities. So there's no doubt that these are communities that has long suffered from marginalization, institutional and environmental racism, underdevelopment, low incomes, and lack of education, which has been making their adaptation even more difficult, especially this day and age. And I could cite one key example of underdevelopment, In most of these communities, there is only one access roads. There are no like evacuation routes. There are lack emergency services. There are poor drainage systems that are like impacting them more when it comes to flooding. And nothing much has been done over the years in terms of trying to address some of these challenges. We have seen that there are some projects that are currently happening in other First Nations. For example, there are some projects happening try to mitigate them. Try to help them mitigate some of the challenges. For example, helping them with retrofitting their homes and so on. But nothing much has been done in Black communities. So what are some of the plans that you have in order to help African Nova Scotians adapt or help their, I would say, help their adaptation to climate change, especially in this day and era where climate change is a big thing happening right now? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's an excellent question. First of all, globally, we have so much more to do to mitigate the impacts of climate change in HRM right now. The Auditor General's recent report outlined that while we have a very good core of first responders, firefighters, EMS, and so forth, prepared to help residents in the case of an emergency, like the fires out in Tentown and Hammonds Plains area last year, that they were lacking an overall response plan, so that people didn't have something to plug into, so that there were communication protocols, so that there was not sort of pointless spinning of wheels. So we definitely need to do better on in terms of an emergency response plan. But to be more specific, we saw this summer how there was a failure of the water supply in the Upper Hammonds Plains area. That wasn't just drinking water; that was fire suppression as well. That was a very dangerous moment in time. The water situation on the Hammonds Plains Road in that community needs to be addressed urgently. And then you also raised about the egress, the means of egress from communities that may be impacted by fire. Again, we'll stick with the Hammonds Plains and Tantallon area road, that part of the municipality. For years, people have been building subdivisions that are terrifically long, but in many roads winding, but all come down to a single road that winds up on Hammonds Plains Road. This is a very dangerous situation, as we saw with the lineup of cars trying to get, with the skies black overhead and people wondering if they were going to burn in their cars. I can't imagine the trauma that has resulted in that people are still living with as a result of that and the loss of their homes. So there is very important work ahead to implement interconnections between these adjacent subdivisions to create many more areas of egress so that we don't have everything coming onto just the Hammonds Plains Road. I've been in discussion in my campaign with some landowners in the area who are prepared to get to work with HRM to make their land available to provide those secondary means of egress. And there's also a Hammonds Plains functional plan to figure out the future use of that road that hasn't been created yet, hasn't been started yet, hasn't consulted with the community yet. So these are three things that directly impact the Black communities in that particular area of the municipality. I've chosen to focus my answer on those that need a lot of work. And as always, you'll always hear me say this, a big part of that is going to be dialogue with community, the people who are living it, to understand exactly what those challenges are and how what advice they'll have for a municipality to best address them. Thank you.
Answer that?
Go ahead, Ben.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for this question. When I was first elected to HRM Council, my first motion in the council was actually to address poor planning issues that were created by previous city planners. And what they did was stop new public roads from being built for those subdivisions, so they couldn't be connected. And since then, I've been able to move forward on the Hammonds Plains Functional Road because of the fact that the municipality now owns the road. So HRM doesn't spend infrastructure dollars on provincial roads, for example. So now that we have that opportunity to work with the landowners, I moved forward with removing the policy barrier, which stopped new public roads from being built for Upper Hammonds Plains in particular. And I moved forward to address the injustice of both the provincial government and the municipal government back in the 90s of laying this pipe that was too small to actually have fire suppression capacity. In addition to that, I've moved forward with creating more water extensions in Middle Sackville, which wasn't even in my district, but I knew that we needed a new school for that area. And also for the Hammonds Plains Road to extend new fire hydrants, and also move the municipality into a way to create cisterns instead of focusing just on dry hydrants in communities like Upper Hammonds Plains that doesn't have access to wildfire fighting capacity. But I think your other issue really is important about the justice that needs to be addressed with African Nova Scotian communities in general, whether it's Lucasville or Preston. The fact is that we need to be working more closely with those communities and recognizing what their needs are. Because an African Nova Scotian community is different, whether you're in Upper Hammonds Plains from a geography perspective or in East Preston. The fact is that the municipality is addressing issues that have been layered over time that all need to be fixed. And as mayor, I will fix them, and I've proven that over the last 4 years, that I'm ready to get to work and address the injustice that's been done within our African Nova Scotian communities and make sure that in the future this doesn't happen, because I'm looking forward to the next generation. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Pam. Waye?
So it's not good enough to acknowledge that environmental racism has happened and is real. You got to do something about it. And certainly we have a history in Nova Scotia that's well documented now of African Nova Scotian communities, but also First Nations and Acadian communities being pushed to the worst, hardest to service land, that with the worst drainage and all the worst opportunities. And so that goes beyond what you asked about, the addressing that goes beyond that, but that's an important thing. And the poor planning that Councillor Lovelace was talking about, the process that's in place now to look at secondary egress, to look at cisterns and dry hydrants, or to look at making sure there's adequate fire flows going through the lines to a wet hydrant so that it's actually useful. I think that there's a bit of a rush on to get that work done, but let's be honest in this room, right? The concern is that the African Nova Scotian community can't be the last one to get the assessment. So we have to make sure that while we're doing this, that we are looking at who is at most risk and working our way down that list. And I suspect, given that history of environmental racism, a lot of Black communities are going to be right at the top of that list. So we're going to have to address that, and we have to make sure we do that in a fair way. You also talked about something in the question about the energy poverty and conversion of houses and improvement of houses. And in my platform, I have a commitment to expand the Solar City program that's been so successful, low interest loans to put solar on your house. I did that, it was great. But other municipalities now, Bridgewater has passed that. They've gone through a pilot project to have a low interest loan for whole home retrofits. Right, so the city can partner with, federal agencies or arm's length agencies like GMF. A board I'm on has programs for this, so you can get some grants and a low interest loan to help people to do. Because there's no point in putting heat pumps and solar on a house that still has the wind whistling through it and has the 1970s vinyl windows. Right, you got to make those envelope improvements first. And so, I think the city can play a big role in helping people, and that needs to be focused on people who are facing the biggest energy challenges and have the least capacity financially to fix that.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Daryl, did you want to jump on that, or?
Yes, just very quickly. So I happened to attend a town hall in Upper Hammonds Plains, about a month ago, and that topic was being discussed, and we had fire officials representing the fire service, and of course Halifax Water Commission. And as Pam just mentioned, the residents weren't happy because of the pipes weren't proper sized, and they didn't have enough fire hydrants installed because they have a new development taking place, and current residents' water supply was low. So I think it's two things. Obviously, one wasn't mentioned. Obviously, poor planning has, as you mentioned, Pam, is an issue. And of course, Wayne kind of alluded to the fact as well, environmental racism. Well, this is, and the residents felt this way as well. Racism is actually playing a part of this, where the community was neglected. I don't know if there was any engagement or interaction before they started the project, but the community felt left out, and as a result, there was very, very poor planning, and now they're trying to, Halifax Fire Service and the Halifax Water Commission are trying to, save face a little bit and try and do something quickly as they can to resolve that issue. I received an email just the other day, 2 days ago. There was a gentleman that reached out to me by email that they're experiencing the same issue on the Prospect Road area. There's one road in, one road out. There's no access to anywhere else. So I responded and said that, you know, the best solution to this is to have access roads that are, you know, for evacuations like Hammers Plains fires and whatnot to get out. So if they were able to connect, or if we were able to connect Beachville with that area, that would be a solution to that problem. North Preston, East Preston, same situation for North Preston. One road in, one road out. They do have a service road, but I don't know if that's enough, because if there was a fire that ever would cut off that road, then there would be, you know, major issues. So I'd like to see all those issues addressed as mayor, and one of the things that I would definitely put on the forefront of my agenda is to look into communities like that, so we can, you know, get those service access roads and help, you know, induce the environment. So. Yep.
Thanks so much. And with that as well, candidates, thank you so much for your time. We've come to the end of our debate today. I do want to bring up Adegoke, who is one of the planners and also part of Leading Leaders Society Nova Scotia, just to give just some thank you remarks, and we can close off from there. And just before that, I also want to just say thank you to all of you for coming here and giving us your time and your concerns and sharing with us that which you are concerned about. So thank you so much. Adegoke, go ahead.
Thank you everyone, to the candidates, to everyone, especially the ones who are also joining online. For us at Leading Leaders, leadership is critical. We believe that everything rises and falls on the shoulders of leaders. And that's why we believe so much in the capacity to lead, and this dialogue was essential. A couple of things we were hoping for, I know you alluded to something like that, is to see how can we have constant engagement with whoever becomes the mayor. Like you rightly said, not everyone has all the answers. So that constant, whether it's quarterly basis, for us to have leaders of thought come together to be able to discuss issues that are pressing. Because one of the things that I believe so strongly about leadership, beyond it being the capacity to influence, is the ability to rally people. You know, and the ability to bring people together. Anytime you see leadership that separates people or divides people, then that's not effective leadership. So what we are looking for, and this is one of the hope we're having, that you guys will have made a commitment to the fact that you will bring leaders together, whether on a quarterly basis to talk about the themes, the issues that affect us, either as allegories, as they would say, because I think it's important, and we wanted to say that. Some other thoughts that we have, I know we talked about I love the fact that you said regarding the making sure that the works are not done at, you know, road constructions are not done at certain peak periods. We also think that it's important that some of the roads that we're told not to ply between 7 to 9 is adding to the problem. If, for example, we have roads presently, you know, not been walkable, or you know, we also should not have roads blocked. The couple of roads that presently we blocked is worsened it. So for someone like me that I have to drop my kids, it used to take me 13 minutes because of some road, like I say, you can't go 7 to 9. I don't understand why. Maybe somebody feels like the noise would disturb their sleep or something, but I think that we need to think about the greater good. Now it takes about 30 minutes to do that same journey. So I'm doing twice the time. So we're hoping that some of those things can be looked into. I know those individuals would definitely have put pressure on their councillors, and they probably are the ones who, you know, instigated such moves. I think that will also help. You know, if you're driving through Queenpill Road right now, literally all the roads turning to the right, you can't on a weekday. And I think that, you know, we should offer ourselves opportunities. So we're looking for things like that. We're also looking for how somebody said it so eloquently, how can communities be supported? I've had the opportunity to lead different organizations. I was opportunity to be the public relations officer of African Diaspora Association of the Maritimes, which I had to work with 17 different communities within. I also was the president of the Nigerian Association at one time, which obviously I created bridges and all of that. So based on that, we're looking to have serious engagements. Okay. And we're not looking for engagement that looks like somebody is giving us a tip. You know,
yeah, well said. Well said.
Because sometimes you have some of those engagements, and then Communities are supported maybe with $100 or $150. Come on. What can that do, really? We want to be empowered. Because the truth of the matter is, if you want to work with diversity like you should, you will need to work through the communities, especially those job employments that you need to push out. We know how to push it out. So you need to engage the communities, and we need to be supported, we need to be strengthened, and we're looking for a lot of that. Anyway, without trying to take over the time, because time has been well spent, I want to say a big thank you once again to each and every one. I want to celebrate the team. Somebody sent me a message today, and the lady said, you're a great leader, and I love to be part of your team. I almost blushed. The truth of the matter is, I'm not a great leader, I have a great team. I've always been able to create great teams over there. We've done remarkable things. Literally everything you see happening here, people are using their sacrifices. They're not paid. Whether it's the media, whether it's the sound, whether it's the food, everything. That speaks about leadership, and that speaks about a team. Please, could you help me celebrate each and every one of them? One of the people, if you're a member of the board, please could you stand, and you're present here, please stand. Olumide, Yinka, Talent, Elise. Those are some of the incredible people. They make life easy. They make life easy. It's our commitment that we're going to increase the capacity of leadership. Our slogan is simple: leading change and inspiring futures. That's why we're doing this. We want to lead the change. Because too many times you talk a lot about stories. We want to lead the change. And another thing that we would love to, beyond all of that, is we would love all the support. And I guess every community is here. Thank you, Madam Udeze. She's the president of United African Canadian Women. She's also the president of Ghana Association. She's the president of Zimbabwe. We built a coalition. And we're excited about the coalition that we've built. Anyway, we have coffee that is getting cold out there. We have snacks and puff. I know Andy still wants to be recorded a bit. We'll see how we can make that happen, because we did that to the other candidates, and we're trying to be as fair as possible. Anyway, we have drinks, water. Please mingle. Don't just go. Shake hands. Take pictures. But before that, I'd like to take pictures with all these people that the board took our journey, right? Is that okay?
After the event, Otni Chinenere sat down with Adegoke Fadare, president of the Leading Leaders Society, to get his perspective on how the engagement went.
All right, folks, so we have with us Adegoke. How are you, sir? How are you?
I feel very relieved but excited, because this was important. My name is Adegoke Fadare. I sit as the president of the board of Leading Leaders Society of Nova Scotia. I have an amazing, fantastic team of individuals I work with, and I'm excited to be here, and you did an amazing job today.
Thank you very much. Now tell me, how important was this conversation to you today?
I think it's important because this is the closest government to you and I, and they have the tremendous influence in affecting how we live on a day-to-day life. And it was important that the election does not just happen without our voice being heard. Whether we like it or not, we've been able to leave an imprint. We were hoping for a footprint eventually, but at least an imprint is a good way to start, which simply means that they will know that we exist and that we need to be consulted. And one of the requirements, or one of the requests we made today, is to see how we can have a quarterly engagement with whoever becomes mayor, because I think ultimately that's important, because one meeting will never fix it all, but constant engagement offers us the opportunity to be able to work those solutions together.
That is amazing. And your team, as you mentioned them so strongly there, you and your team did such a good job in bringing this together, and in short notice too. So can you just talk to me about you and your team, and specifically leading leaders and what they are about?
So leading leaders is about developing capacity, leadership capacity, because we ultimately believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. Anywhere you go, you see things working. It means leadership, right leadership is in place. And one of the things we've come to realize, as the team and the board, is that there's a leadership problem, whether you and I like, amongst us as blacks. And because there's a leadership problem, we have the circumstances that we have where things are not working the way they should work. So we said, rather than be part of a conversation only, why don't we take actions regarding? And that's why this society was born, to begin to offer people the opportunity to have the right skill sets and tools to be able to become strong and effective leadership. Because leadership is about effective capacity. So anything that has capacity can be improved, can be worked upon, can be enhanced. And our desire and our hope is that with this society, we increase and enhance the capacity of our leaders across board, whether it's in sports, academics, in governance, in politics, around
to become effective. So that's what we're aiming for. And our slogan is basically leading the change and inspiring the future.
And that's exactly what you did today, and we are so thankful that you are able to bring this conversation today. So thank you to you and your team, and thank you so much for all the whole day.
Thank you to see you, for M4 Media. Thank you for being our media partner, because I'm tired of blacks doing things in the closet, where we do things and nobody hears or nobody sees about it. So to be able to have a media like M4 Media to partner with, to be part of this, I think is fantastic, and we're really grateful. And I'm glad we're going to do many things together, because this was awesome. When you told me about you, I believe so much in my team. When you made mention of your name, I said, come on, I'm good, I'm game. Like, I sure you don't want. I said, I believe in you. So that's it.
That's good. Well, I appreciate it, and I thank you so much.
And
that's all we have.
That wraps up our coverage of the 2024 Halifax Mayoral Candidates Engagement with the Black and immigrant communities. We hope you found the discussions insightful and empowering. For more events like this and to stay connected with all the latest community activities, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more meaningful conversations that matter to our communities. See you next time.